A ver, la idea d'aquest esdeveniment, bueno, I'm going to say something in Spanish and Catalan and then we change.
Okay. I'm going to say something in
Catalan, please. Bueno, tenim la sort que Terry ha vingut a Espanya perquè estarà uns dies a Alicante fent una formació de coaches que venen de tot el món a formar-se aquí a Espanya. Llavors fa un petit stop a Barcelona de 2 días y vaig dir, Terry, tienes que venir a Natació a Barcelona y explicar tu proyecto de vida desde el punto de vista de natació. I llavors vam fer ahir una masterclass, va ser molt interessant, amb 20 nedadors que hi eren total immersion. I li vaig demanar a Terry que em donés 90 minuts del seu temps per explicar-vos aquí en persona el seu projecte de Total Immersion. Pels que no coneixeu a Terry, no sé si heu llegit el llibre, a part de tot el projecte Total Immersion, Terry va ser entrenador de natació del US Army als Estats Units, de West Point. És entrenador de diversos nedadors que han sigut campions nacionals als Estats Units, de màsters, de grups. És entrenador de natació de nedadors que han arribat als Trials Olímpics de natació dels Estats Units. When you were 50 years old, you had the national record in your country. 55, excuse me. Va ser campió nacional amb 55 anys de 2 mile, right?
1 mile and 2 mile.
1 mile and 2 mile, amb el qual té molt força experiència com a nedador també. I ha creat el mètode Total Immersion, aquí teniu els seus llibres, s'han traduït a més de 10 idiomes. I és una referència dins de l'ASCA, que és American Swimming Center Association, és una associació d'entrenadors de natació de tots els Estats Units i on el Terry fa molts speeches. És una persona molt reclamada allà, on va fer moltes conferències, on la seva audiència són entrenadors de natació. Lo qual, this is your little biography and CV. Okay? So, apart from you, we have some other TI coaches in this room. So we have Marion Hubers. She's the TI coach from the Netherlands, in Holland. She's half Dutch, half Catalan already.
Yes.
Yeah. She's coming.
That's how, right?
She's coming very often to this club. We have done some workshops together. We have done some open water workshops in Barcelona. So I've done some workshops with her in Greece, Grecia, muy interesante. Then we have Rafa. Rafa is also another TI coach in Barcelona. Yeah, I share a lot of workshops with him. And well, this is like a little community. We have TI coaches all around the world. We have this is a global project, so és molt interessant perquè els coaches estem formats de la mateixa manera, tots ensenyem igual, estiguin a Àsia, a Japó, als Estats Units. És molt curiós perquè allà on estiguis seguim el mateix mètode. Llavors, la idea d'avui és fer una presentació Total Immersion, però m'agradaria fer-ho... Yeah, sorry. Sorry. We have some more members. We have some more members of Terry's Laughlin family. We have Fiona. Fiona és la filla del Terry, que també és TI coach. I we have Alice, que és la dona, i que treballa també al projecte Total Immersion. Llavors la idea d'avui és fer una presentació però en format d'entrevista, que jo m'agradaria anar a fer unes preguntes a Terry, de manera que jo puc entendre una miqueta també amb les preguntes que jo faig una mica les vostres motivacions, perquè molts de vosaltres us conec, molts de vosaltres heu estat a l'aigua amb vosaltres i conec una mica les sensibilitats i aprofitar per fer unes preguntes que jo crec que poden respondre a molts dels vostres dubtes. So I was telling them that I'm gonna interview you. So because I know most of them, they were my swimmers. I've been working with them. Most of them, they also know Total Immersion, and I think with my question I can answer some of their doubts and questions about swimming. Okay. So we are done. We can start. Yeah. So you know some words in Catalan, right?
My repertoire of Catalan is Bona tarda a tothom and moltes gràcies per venir.
Ho hem entrenat una mica això. Això s'ha entrenat,
Which is what you said at the start already.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I mean, m'agradaria primer parlar del Terry com a nedador. I wanted to make some questions about you as a swimmer.
Sure.
Okay? Because one of the things that surprised me the most when I read your book is you said that you were a better swimmer when you were 40 years old compared to when you were much younger. So how it was possible? So because normally when you are 40 you are worse swimmer compared to when you were a very strong and competitive swimmer.
Yeah.
So how can you deal with this?
Well, certainly when I was 20, I expected to be finished with swimming by the time I was 40, that I would not be swimming, and if I swam at all, I'd be swimming very poorly. But I was coaching, as Sergey said, from the age of 21, or 1972 until 1988 when I was 37, and I was coaching club and college swimmers, and I learned the importance of technique. No one had ever taught me any technique when I was a high school swimmer or a college swimmer. So the first 7 years that I competed in swimming, no one had ever taught me anything about technique. They just gave workouts. And I didn't really understand anything about technique. I certainly didn't recognize its importance. When I started coaching in 1972, as soon as I was standing on deck and watching swimmers in the water and I was responsible for their performance, I started to have an intuitive understanding that technique was very, very important. And right from the first day that I was a swimming coach, I started teaching technique, even though I had spent 7 years swimming and no one had ever done anything with me in technique. From the first 10 minutes of the first practice I ever coached, I was teaching technique. Then I was still 37 years old. I had just stopped coaching actively in club teams and college teams, and I met a coach named Bill Boomer in the US, and he taught me a balance drill. I didn't even know that balance was a skill, and Boomer taught me a balance drill, and I had swum for more than 20 years at that point, almost 25 years, and I had always thought I had heavy legs. My legs just sort of dragged. No matter how much I kicked, my legs dragged. They were tired from kicking. They got tired easily at the end of races. My legs were useless. My kick was useless. And I just thought I had heavy legs. I thought I was born with blue eyes and heavy legs. And Bill Boomer in 1988 taught me a balance drill, and I realized in a space of 10 minutes that I didn't necessarily have heavy legs. If I learned how to distribute my weight differently, that my legs would lift toward the surface. And that was mind-blowing to realize that something I'd believed about myself for 25 years was untrue. So just that experience of realizing that I'd swum all these years and coached with great accomplishment, and there was still something really fundamental that I didn't understand about swimming, like a black hole in my swimming knowledge. And so I started improving as a swimmer at age 37. I was reborn as a swimmer at age 37. And then at age 38, 1 year later, I started total immersion and began working with adult onset swimmers, and that forced me to keep learning new things about technique, because I was working with people who had no experience, no skill. They were new to swimming in their 30s, 40s, 50s. And I became a much better coach, and along the way, I kept practicing my own technique and improving my own technique. So I was far better. I was a better swimmer at 40 than I had been at 20. I was a better swimmer at 50 than I had been at 40. I was a better swimmer at 60 than I had been at 50, and you know how the story goes. Perfect.
Nice story.
Was
And
it a Superman drill or
The drill that Boomer taught me, it was more like our torpedo drill. It was like this on the breast, leaning on the breast, kicking, and my legs were so light when I did it, and aligning the head and spine. That idea of aligning the head and spine was the one he taught me. He called it pressing the T, because the intersection of your spine and this right here was the T that he was referring to, and to press on your lungs while kicking lightly. So we teach a drill very similar to it, not just like it now.
Yeah. So, és muy interessante, no? El que diu de després de molts anys entrenant, ningú li havia explicat el que era l'estabilitat, no? El balance, no? Que és bàsic. És a dir, pots fer metros i metros i metros i no t'expliquen que has d'estar dalt perquè la teva propulsió sigui efectiva, fins que no li van dir i va descobrir-ho després i va dir, escolta, esto és fonamental, no? I llavors ho comença a aplicar. I és curiós com avui en dia encara no s'explica això. Vale? Però bueno, let's go through... You already answered my second question about the coach. Why did you become a coach?
Well, actually, yeah. Why did I become a coach? The summer after I graduated from college, I was training as a swimmer, and just out of habit. I thought I was retired from swimming, but out of habit I went to workouts with someone who had been a club coach, a coach on a club that I belonged to, not my college coach. And at the end of a workout in July of 1972, he came up to me and said, "Have you ever thought of being a coach?" And I didn't know quite how to answer that. No, I've never thought of being a coach. I'm not a very good swimmer. Why would anyone listen to me in the role of a coach? And he said, I'm leaving my position as the coach at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, and he saw something in me that he thought I could be a good coach. So he got me an interview at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, and they did offer me the job. I don't think there were any other applicants. And the job only paid $1,200 for the season, and I was happy. I turned down a job that paid $6,000 to take the job that paid $1,200 but would let me coach. And that was the start of it. And I just turned out to be, I discovered from the first year, I was only 21, the whole first year I was coaching, because I had been young in college, and so I worked on technique with my team the whole year, and we went to our league championship meet at the end of the season, same league in which I had been a swimmer, very mediocre swimmer. I had not even qualified for any finals at the championship meet 12 months earlier as a swimmer, and there I was coaching a team 12 months after being a failure as a swimmer, and my team had a fantastic meet, and good enough that I was voted Coach of the Year by my fellow coaches, and I just thought, well, I've found what I was meant to do.
To be in the States, I mean, to be recognized as the best coach of the year in New York City.
New York City.
It's really relevant.
It's all the colleges are in and around New York City.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about total immersion. We've been talking about you as a coach, you as a swimmer, and then how did you come up with total immersion? Which were the experts you were working on, and your supporters, and helping you to develop this system, this methodology?
Well, the primary experts with which I was working was the swimmers I was coaching. I've always been a very observant coach, even from my first day in coaching. When I said I worked on technique, when I was standing on the pool deck while my swimmers swam 800 yards of freestyle for their warm-up, the first 10 minutes of the first workout that I ever coached, I noticed that they were all asymmetrical. In other words, those who breathed to the left were all twisting more in that direction. Those who breathed to the right were all twisting more in that direction, and no one was symmetrical, and no one was breathing bilaterally at that time. And it just occurred to me, I knew nothing about stroke mechanics, as they call it, the science of technique, knew nothing whatsoever. I'd never had any courses in it in college. But it just occurred to me that if people are asymmetrical and they're diverting energy this way when they're meaning to move that way, that can't be a good thing. So the next day I came in, and for the warm-up I said 800 yards of freestyle, same routine warm-up that a lot of coaches give, 800 yards of freestyle. And I said, but I want you to breathe on the wrong side. And they did it, and for the next 10 or 11 minutes, I had a markedly more symmetrical swimming team. And I just thought, there can't be anything bad about practicing symmetry before we do the real work. It just went from there. I became very observant. I learned to trust my observations, to learn to trust my instincts, and be very comfortable doing experiments like the one I just mentioned, and doing a lot of trial and error, tweaking of making small adjustments to people's strokes on just try it and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, don't do it again. And if it works, keep that, build on it. So I was very comfortable with experimentation. This is before total immersion, long before total immersion. But that was what led me to success. I was very, very rigorous on technique. I taught all the time. I visualized my swimmers as better than they were. Often I had to will my vision to them. I had to convince them of that what I saw in them was possible. They didn't see it in themselves, and I had to get them to share my vision. So I've always learned more from swimmers than from any experts. Yes.
Hi, I'm Andreas.
Hi, Andreas.
Was your approach to this technique, was that science-based, or was it more trial and error?
That's a great question. So Andreas wants to know if my approach was science-based or trial and error. And it always started with observation. I would observe an error. I would know the look of the better technique that I was looking for. I'd know the difference between the look of the error and the look. I was always just looking for swimmers to be more graceful. It just offended me to watch ugly movement. And I wanted swimmers to show more beauty in the water, to show more grace in the water. And I think, if you talk about efficiency, that sounds mechanical. It sounds like something that you have to be an engineer to understand. But if you talk about beauty and grace, we all feel qualified to recognize what's beautiful and what's not, what's graceful and what's not. And grace, I just think of grace as a warmer word for efficiency. So it would always start there with a human feeling. And then I would do trial and error. I would get in the water myself and try the drill or the movement that I wanted them to do. And from that, I would develop the language that I would use while teaching them, the language of feeling. Language called kinesthetic language. And then often I would, if it worked, not only worked aesthetically, but also worked in that they were able to swim with more ease at the same speed. Then I would look for a scientific explanation.
by bringing your question, I mean, you raised up something very interesting because did you get any input from psychologists? Because when you train, when you coach, you all the time linking the brain with the muscles.
Yeah.
And doing the drills without breathing, just trying to concentrate as much as possible. So
Right.
that's makes something that it comes from your brain.
Yeah.
So you need to have some, I'm pretty sure you have some inputs from this field, right?
Yes, the very first place, and again, it came from a direct experience, a direct observation I made about my swimmers. In this case, it wasn't a observation of how they moved, but how they behaved. And their thinking processes. So at the Merchant Marine Academy, which is also called Kings Point, it's like the Military Academy, the Naval Academy, the Air Force Academy, the Coast Guard Academy. You're an employee of the U.S. government if you go to the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. So it's a college where you wear a uniform, you're being trained to go into the Merchant Marine, and you get a small stipend. You get a very small salary. In other colleges, you pay a tuition, and you may get a scholarship to be on the swimming team. At Kings Point, everyone was on scholarship. So the only reason to swim was you really liked swimming and you really wanted to swim because you were not being sort of motivated by a scholarship, or the other reason, at Kings Point, if you were on any sport, not just swimming, during the season that the sport was training and competing, you got excused from duties that no one liked. Cleaning latrines, marching in reviews, things like that. So I found out that the swimmers, I had inherited an arrangement or a hierarchy in the pool where the fast swimmers were always in lane 1 and the slow swimmers were in lane 4. And the fast swimmers looked smoother and longer in the water, and the slow swimmers looked rough and choppy and short in the water. I knew I had looked like the ones in lanes 4 myself. And I wanted to change the swimmers in lane 4 to look more like the swimmers in lane 1. And you have to get very personal with them. You can't just, my coach in college would just write sets on the board and just stand there watching us. But if I want to change the way they look and change the way they swim, I have to get down very close and I have to talk to them a lot and I have to have a close interaction with them. Well, as soon as I started interacting in this way with swimmers, I also found that there was a strong overlap in lane 1, the longer, more beautiful strokes and the faster times, with an intrinsic motivation to swim. They wanted to swim. They liked to swim. Lane 4, there were a lot of people who were there because they wanted to get out of doing other things. So that was my first introduction to the importance of psychology, which is I had to change the minds of the swimmers in lane 4 because before I could change their swimming. So right from the start, I was understanding the importance of psychology. Later, I made more of a study of it. When the field of what's called positive psychology, are you familiar with positive psychology? It's most psychology until the 1980s. It always studied people who were psychologically ill. And then in the late 1980s, they began to study people who were psychologically very healthy and very happy, and to understand what made them happy and thriving. And then they began to describe the mindsets of people who were very happy and psychologically healthy, and that's positive psychology. So when that field emerged in the late 1980s, it was about the same time that total immersion was launched, And I began reading a lot of different books in the field of positive psychology. And one of my favorites is a book called Mastery by George Leonard, and another, Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. And it was from reading books like these that I learned that there were behaviors of successful people that had been observed in many different domains. Great teachers, great mathematicians, great musicians, great athletes, lots of different domains. They had seen common behaviors, common mindsets, and I thought if we are teaching these things alongside with put your hand through a mail slot, that it would be a much better service to our students.
Okay, nice. Okay, let's go through more into detail about total immersion. Let's talk about the fundamentals of your methodology of total immersion. For most of you, maybe you know, most of you've been with me in the water, you know the difference between the traditional way of teaching swimming versus total immersion. So can you please explain us the main differences between the traditional, when I say traditional, is the way I learn how to swim. So I learn in the traditional way of swimming. But I mean, which are the main differences between total immersion and traditional swimming?
So what were you taught?
To swim very hard, hard workouts, training many hours per day, and not paying attention at all to technique, and getting very, very tired.
So they just assumed you would learn technique on your own by doing lots of laps.
And a lot of frustration.
Yeah. And what was the effect on you?
I stopped swimming.
You stopped swimming.
At the very early age.
Why?
Because I couldn't combine such a big amount of hours in the pool with my studies.
With your studies.
So I'm imagining that if at that time I had more technique, I probably was able to swim less time in the pool, because I probably was able to be a more efficient swimmer.
Yeah.
And I need to swim a lot to get a regular outcome.
Yeah.
So that's why I learned in the traditional way, and the outcome, as a result of this process, I failed when I was very young.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is the difference?
So there's
Because I learned how to swim again with total immersion. I'm now 45. I learned to swim well, correctly. I'm a better swimmer now.
And how do you feel about swimming now?
Now I need to swim every day.
You need to.
I need to be in the water every day.
It's a positive addiction.
Of course. I need to feel the water every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it feels good.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are two things. There's competitive swimming and there's swimming instruction. And how we differ from swimming instruction is they teach you how to pull and kick, and ignore whether you're comfortable in the water, whether you feel supported in the water, or whether you feel like you're sinking. I took a Red Cross swimmer course. I passed a Red Cross swimmer course and got my Red Cross swimmer badge when I was 12. And then I tried out for the swimming team at my Catholic grammar school. The following, several months later, in the fall of 1963, and I was turned down. I was rejected from the tryout. I was the only one cut from that tryout. Not an auspicious beginning for my swimming. But I had a badge that said I was a swimmer. Why couldn't I be on this Catholic grammar school swimming team? It's not exactly like Olympic swimmers were coming out of that team. So I was taught the traditional way, and I couldn't even make the team at my Catholic grammar school after being taught the traditional way. And so they taught me just kick your legs and windmill your arms, move your arms in a circle, and that was kind of it. So we teach that last, or we give that a much lower priority. It doesn't come up at the beginning of our instruction. The very first thing that we teach, as you know, is on that banner. We teach balance first. Balance is the foundation. Balance means you're comfortable in the water. You enjoy being in the water. You feel safe. You feel secure in the water, and you feel at home in the water. And that's really, really important to make you want to go further and learn more. So we teach balance first, and then we teach vessel shaping, meaning to shape your body like the vessels that naval architects design, that are designed to move through the water with as much efficiency and as little resistance and as little water disturbance as possible. So we teach streamlining, and then we teach propulsion, but we don't teach everything there is about propulsion all at once right away. We just teach you to move your body in an integrated and synchronized fashion, so that arms, legs, torso, head are all moving in a rhythmic togetherness, working as one. So that's a fundamental difference. And another way of describing it is that in traditional instruction teaches what I call terrestrial technique, which is that if you've watched a dog swim, or a deer, or another terrestrial mammal, a land-dwelling mammal, it's head up above the water to avoid choking, all four limbs going to avoid sinking. And that's how we naturally swim as terrestrial mammals. So this way of teaching how to pull and how to kick is just following that way of being in the water, that we're terrestrial beings. And we just think that's so inefficient that it's not even worth trying to improve on it, that you should instead observe what can humans learn from fish and aquatic mammals, and that is that they're always horizontal. They're designed by evolution to be very streamlined. They don't have a lot of moving parts. So humans have 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, all of which can be moving independently, and the way in which we cut down on the moving parts is to get them to move as one, to get them to move together. So fewer moving parts, to be more streamlined, to propel with rotation of the body instead of churning the arms and legs.
Now you understand why during the workshops we spend so much time working on balance. Estamos mucho rato haciendo Superman, buscando la estabilidad, y hasta que, we need to spend a lot of time to get the best form, best shape in the water. Then we are ready to propulse.
Yeah.
So sometimes we need a lot of time. But if we start with doing the propulsion, it's a waste of time, it's worthless. You need to be on top, horizontal, and then we are ready to propulse. So that's why we do a lot of Superman, we do a lot of skating, etc., etc.
You're a human-powered vessel. Think about the best example of another human-powered vessel, racing shells in the sport of rowing, and how beautifully long and sleek those racing shells are. Why? Because they're propelled by humans, and they have to be super efficient vessels.
One more thing I like to mention and to highlight about total immersion is the long-term vision. It's true that when I see a lot of coaches training in kids or junior swimmers, They just pay attention to the short-term goals.
The next meet or this season?
This season, or they have a very important event in 3 months, or they need to make a specific time to get qualified for the nationals, etc. So this is a very short vision, and where I'm learning from you is the long-term vision. And you don't think when you see a swimmer, we were talking about this before, you see the potential he's got in the future.
So when I was coaching age group swimmers over 30 years ago in the 1970s and early 80s, if I was coaching 11-year-old or 12-year-old, I would have a vision of the kind of swimmer they could be at 15 or 16 with my coaching and by working together. I didn't just look at them as they were today.
Yeah, I mean, you told me today, I mean, when you are teaching kids, you don't want them to just swim one stroke. You make them to swim all of the strokes, even if one single swimmer, for instance, is very good in freestyle, he needs to swim the other strokes, and then afterwards in the future they can be specialized in one single stroke.
Right.
And esto es un tema que se genera mucho debate, ¿no? It's a great debate. Because you said, I mean, till they are 12 or 13 years old, it's not training, it's learning.
Right.
So here in Spain, and what I see with the coaches, they just train, they don't learn. And I see constantly ugly movements, one day over and over, and then 1 week after I see the same ugly movements, and I go to the pool 1 month later, I see the same ugly movements, and I go there 1 year later, I see the same ugly movements. I mean, this is something that I don't understand.
And it's radically different. So what Sergey is saying is a swimmer who's 10 or 12 and swimming with a movement that is very hard to watch. It's painful to watch them swim because you know they're going to hurt themselves, and you know it just doesn't look good. There's no beauty in the movement, and a year later they will still look the same way. The students we teach, in radical contrast, a few days after we start teaching them, they look very, very different.
Yeah.
A month later, they look different, even more different. A year later, you can't recognize the swimmer they were before at all, and we just think that process should never stop. In other words, you should never stop learning.
Yeah.
Yes, question?
Hi, I'm Nuria. I'm in the middle of the first level course with it. And my question is, do you think we can all learn? I mean, can we all reset, or is just some people are like more capable of doing it, or we can unlearn what we learned to relearn? We're all capable of that? Or if we start like at my age, we're not going to be able to improve as much as if we start at 30 or 20. You understand what I mean?
I understand. Yeah. Yeah.
She's worried because she's now right in the middle of the transformation process.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been doing some drills this morning, and well, you know, they need to change the way they swim, because they swim from here to here,
Yeah.
from here to here, then they lose the front quadrant, they sink. So now we need to rebuild the swimming. Instead of from here to here, we need to do like this. So
But
this is
maybe some people are like useless to learn.
So your question, first of all, is there an age at which maybe you're too old to learn new things? Is one half of the question. And the other half of the question is, what are the factors that affect how fast someone learns? Do I have it?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
And if everybody, I mean, if that's the kind of method that everybody can learn, no matter what.
Yeah.
Everybody can.
So, all right, so first answer is everyone can learn, without exception. Everyone can learn, everyone can improve, no exceptions. If they if they are willing to participate in the success of their own learning. In other words, the teacher takes a certain amount of responsibility for the success of the student's learning. We take a huge amount of responsibility, but we have to be partners. The student has to be motivated to change. I don't think you would be there in the class if you weren't motivated to make this change, all right? So that motivation is there. The second part is what determines some learn faster, some take longer. I'm a slow learner. When we started cross-country skiing with my family, we had been skiing the old-fashioned, the classic style for years with no instruction. We had a trail in our backyard, and we got plenty of snow. We lived in upstate New York, and I would just go out on the trail. It was an old railroad, formerly a railroad, and it was a rail trail, and I would just go cut a trail in new snow and ski on it, and just sort of move one ski forward to the other. And then one weekend we went up to Lake Placid and took the whole family up to Lake Placid, and I saw someone doing the newer style, skating style of skiing, and it was one of the most beautiful things I had ever seen in terms of beauty of movement. And I saw someone just flowing up a hill, and it looked effortless, and I said, I need to know what that feels like, to flow up a hill. And so we all signed up for basic instruction, and at the end of the first 90 minutes, I knew nothing, and my wife and 3 daughters all had a pretty good idea of how to skate on a basic level. And so I went back, and they were out skiing around on trails. I went back. They have an infield at Lake Placid where they give instruction at just a big flat field. And I went back and I just did that whole lesson that we'd done all over again by myself. I repeated everything we had done in the lesson, and before I had even a slight understanding. So I'm a slow learner, but within a few years I was the best skier in the family. And that's because I know how to be persistent, and I know how to learn things. I'm a slow learner, but I know how to learn things. Yes, Fiona.
I want to add something, because I don't know if you've called this before, but Terry's my dad, so I'm one of those 3 daughters who was taken off ahead. But I think part of why total immersion really is the most successful swimming technique for adult beginner swimmers, and it works well with any kind of swimmer, from elite to beginner. But I think the specific reason why it's so popular all over the world with adult beginner swimmers is that if you were to take lessons from somebody who is a naturally gifted Olympic swimmer, in a lot of cases they would not be able to break it down for you in a way that works for you, because they've never had to break it down themselves if they were naturally gifted. So I think, my dad's whole story about I was a really bad swimmer, and then I became a coach, and then I became a swimmer again, and learning to swim again. Taking instruction from somebody who has had to teach themselves how to become good at something from not being naturally good at something as their starting point is the best type of instruction if you feel like you're not a naturally gifted swimmer or a naturally gifted anything. Because I've seen a lot of people take swimming instruction and coaching from people who are great swimmers who have no idea how to coach. And the reason they have they'll just give workouts. And the reason they have no idea how to coach is they don't actually understand what it is they're doing. You know what I mean? They have a certain feel. It's called a feel for the water, but that exists in almost any sport, a certain feel for something. In a lot of cases, these people have never had a coach who've broken it down for them, and they were naturally gifted, and they just became coaches. But then they try to teach somebody, and it just doesn't work. They don't know how to address the needs of that person. And I think that's why total learning really works, is that, my dad has been that swimmer himself first, and so he understands how to translate that. And yet at the same time, what we teach is the same thing that elite level swimmers are doing naturally. So it's not 2 different things. It's just broken down in a way that you can learn it in a step-by-step process, what some people just have a natural quick feel for. So yeah, I mean, it's different speeds for different people, but I've worked with people from elite level, swimmers and triathletes to total beginners, people who can't swim at all, and everybody has the same problems, actually. It's just different variations on the same theme. Everybody has balance problems, everybody has timing problems, everybody has, fluency issues. Just some people have them a lot more than others. So the reason why we're able to apply sort of a formula to everyone is if you look at videos, when we do these workshops, we videotape everybody underwater, and then we look at your videos and analyze it. And I've been doing this workshop for 25 years. I've seen every kind of swimmer that you can imagine. It's almost always the same thing that we're repeating to every single person. Balance issues, you need to put your head down, all these single things. But by the end of the video analysis, it's like, you can actually see that everybody's doing the same things wrong. And it's just, figuring out how to apply these steps to make a correction that allows pretty much anybody to learn how to do it correctly. Some people are longer than others, yeah.
So, well done, thank you, Fiona.
Question?
The factor, though, just very quickly now, the factors that lead to learning faster. Some people have the ability to change patterns in their nervous system more quickly. That's an inborn thing, so they can make changes more quickly. Some people have other experiences, like dance experience or martial arts experience or things like that, where they're really used to paying attention. I gave a lesson once to a woman who was a singer with the Frankfurt Ballet, and she learned more in 25 minutes, a stunning amount in 25 minutes, and I asked her why and how that happened, and she said, well, I've been singing professionally for years, and I've been teaching people how to sing, and you sing with your body. And so she was used to paying attention to body feel, to all, very, very fine, very elusive sensations, and that was a big help for her. The last part of that question was, are you ever too old? And I will just say, some of you may know this already, the oldest student I ever taught was 94 years old. And Dr. Paul Lurie, who happens to live in New Paltz near us in New York, and he took his first lesson at 94. At 95, when he was 95, we shot video of him. He was so beautiful, and you can find this video on YouTube. He's 99 now, so that was 4 years ago. And he's still swimming every morning at 6:45 at 99 years old. But we put the video on YouTube, and it's about 60,000 people have looked at that video and just marveled at how beautifully he was swimming at 95. So I suppose Dr. Paul Lurie, he's probably a really good learner, but just imagine, he started at 94. He was still improving at 97 and 98.
He holds the record in his age group.
Probably. I don't know.
Yeah, he can't swim competitively because he has atrial fibrillation.
Okay. Any question over that?
Yeah?
I'm Nuri's brother. I'm in the same pool with her. Related to her question, since the first day, you can see that some of us can float all the pool long, and some of us, after 3-4 seconds, we are sinking.
Right.
So that makes you think that perhaps you have some kind of limitation or body type that makes you never will perfectly balanced.
Yeah. So there are genetic differences in ability to float. There are unquestionably genetic differences in ability to float, but swimming, fortunately, is not about floating. If you asked an Olympic swimmer to float while moving slowly, they might have a lot of difficulty doing that because they're athletically lean, as the phrase is, the phrase used to describe them, as they're athletically lean. So an Olympic swimmer might have difficulty with floating easily, but they certainly can swim fast. So it's not about floating. The first couple of drills are more challenging if you're not good at floating. Once you have more momentum and some rhythm in what you're doing, the equation really changes.
Say something really briefly. What I've seen just from working with so many people is one of the biggest factors is relaxation. People who tend to be tense. It's not always, because yeah, there is just the body composition if you have longer skinnier legs or whatever. But often what makes the biggest difference in the earliest stages of this is tension versus relaxation. When you're more relaxed, it will flow easier. There's a scientific explanation, but it does also have to do with when you're more relaxed, your body is better balanced because your body parts are released into gravity as opposed to tensing upwards.
Yeah, I don't know the scientific explanation, but we've seen it over and over. When we can get someone to relax who has been sinking, they float better. But it's natural, if your history is sinking, it's natural to be tense in the water. You bring that with you, and that's something you have to unlearn.
Okay, yeah, Ken?
I want to go to the other side of the spectrum, so from 97 and 98. We're talking about kids learning wrongly and then unlearn. Can we skip that step? Like, is the method applicable to very young children as well? And would you follow exactly the same steps, start with the Superman, or with that experience with teaching small children?
Alice, do you want to answer that? Alice teaches young children every day almost.
105. I've had 5-year-olds be able to take what would be the total immersion freestyle workshop. The problem is when they go back to their club, they can unlearn what I taught them. It's repetition, small children, repetition. And less talk, I swim, look at me, do. So the challenge is, it's really putting a lot of repetition on the skill. So the answer is yes. Small children can learn this. Easy. Freestyle especially.
Rafa,
you have to make a game though. You have to make a game. So I'll tell you my game. I will tell you my game. I am the beautiful mermaid. And we're swimming in the ocean, pretend. And here is the swordfish. The swordfish is long with the pointy nose. And the shark pops his fin. The swordfish just doesn't know he's coming. And here comes the shark. Here comes the shark. Now the swordfish sees him with his eye over here, and the shark dives in, and the swordfish swims away.
Oh, thank you.
So you teach your children this. They will love the game. It has to be mermaids and dolphins and play. Okay? But under 5, they sometimes have no social skills. They don't understand a teacher or paying attention. Only 30 minutes. That's it. Or maybe 20. And then you play rockets and rocket. Oh, you want to be Superman? You want to be Superman?
Do you want to sing the Spider-Man song for them, Al?
But it's the same principle, but for small children. So you can play swordfish shark fin.
Yeah, Nuria, we can try. Nuria, we can try on Saturday. We can try this on Saturday because now we are starting the recovery.
You're gonna have to start telling me these stories. You're gonna have to be a mermaid.
We just started the recovery, so.
I bought a mermaid. You know the monofin. Monofin, you know the.
Alice bought a mermaid costume.
I bought a mermaid costume.
Yeah, the kids are going to love you.
So, Rafa tiene también mucha experiencia. He visto vídeos impresionantes de chicos de 10 años. Y vídeos de antes y después en cuánto? 3-4 horas. Brutal. Sí, sí, es muy impresionante.
¿Qué edades? También es por encima de 5 años.
Sí, hay que tener una conciencia primero corporal, ¿vale? Entonces, yo, por experiencia, por trabajar con niños y todo, a partir de los 7, 8 años, se acepta muy bien el método Total Immersion. Pero antes, hay que crear también una base de equilibrio, sobre todo la parte de balance, ¿sí? Podemos trabajar siempre desde pequeñitos, desde los bebés. Entonces, después en el futuro, si siguen nadando, pues desarrollan mucho más facilidad toda la parte de propulsión y de hidrodinámica.
Let's make a little joke, Terry. Imagine all these attendants, they know how to swim very nice, very beautiful, total immersion. Okay, nice strokes, nice streamline position, nice head position, but they want to be faster swimmers.
Mhm.
Which is your approach to get speed when they swim very nice? So we're talking about how to use the frequency, how to use a tempo trainer, how to mix our Bible, the green zone, the
Yeah.
number of strokes, being always in the green zone, not crossing the red line,
Mhm.
and how can we tell them to go into the total immersion 2.0?
You know, first of all, I think that the desire or the goal to swim faster is a very healthy one, healthy in body, healthy in mind, because faster swimming is better exercise in a certain way. It calls on more muscle groups, it activates more muscle groups, and one of the things that gerontologists, people who study the aged and work with medicine of the aged, find is they really like to study masters athletes in their 80s, because they find that people who have goals, performance goals and speed goals in their 80s and train to be fast, they have the physiology in some important regards, and I'm talking about cellular physiology, not just general health, but at the cellular level. They have cells that appear to be those of people half their age. And so there's something about striving for performance that is a fountain of youth, all right? So that's part of it. The other part of it is that it's a really interesting puzzle to solve, how to go faster. You have to do a lot of really clear thinking and problem solving, and so it's good for the mind as well. But you know, the starting point is to be balanced and streamlined and fluent in your stroke, and to be swimming with a stroke count in your green zone, and then and to feel good, to just feel good, to enjoy every stroke you take. That's the starting point. Now, a lot of people get to that and are not interested in going faster. They're enjoying it so much they just want to keep enjoying it, and I have no problem with that. But we do advocate to consider faster swimming as a goal, for the reason, as I said, that it can help you be healthy, and it's a good anti-aging tool. That's one of the reasons to pursue it. Is it really can be good as an anti-aging activity. So it's really a matter of take your tempo trainer, take your green zone stroke count, find out what range of tempos you can swim at in your green zone. At what tempo, as I go faster in tempo, what tempo takes me above my green zone? All right, I will make it my goal in 2 months' time to be able to swim in my green zone in a tempo that used to take me out of my green zone. It's really about pressing the left button on your tempo trainer, the one that makes tempo faster, and seeing if you can hold the same stroke count without increasing your stroke.
Yeah, can we show them, because most of you don't know about what is tempo trainer, no? Can we open I think I have a tempo trainer. Do you want to show the video?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have to restart the...
Esto es una herramienta que utilizamos mucho para lo que explica Terry, que es como yo soy capaz de nadar en mi zona verde. Mi zona verde es la zona que nosotros establecemos como zona de eficiencia de número de brazadas según altura. Número de brazadas según altura, también lo tenemos para envergadura. ¿Vale? Entonces, cuando los nadadores que hacen los cursos nuestros son capaces de llegar a su zona verde, que muchos cuando empiezan los cursos están arriba, después del curso llegan a su zona verde, y llegan a su zona verde, el siguiente paso es, ¿puedo nadar en mi zona verde a un ritmo de confort y relajado? Sí, perfecto. Siguiente paso, ¿cómo puedo ir más rápido sin salir de la zona verde? Entonces, cuando tengo que trabajar con la adaptación neuronal a la velocidad, utilizamos este cacharrito. Que lo que hacemos es simplemente darnos una ayuda externa que nos va marcando un punto de frecuencia, pero que podemos trabajarlo cada centésima de segundo. Entonces, con un programa de entrenamiento a más largo plazo, somos capaces de mantener nuestra zona verde, pero cada vez ir más rápido. ¿Vale?
¿Qué van a bajar?
Esto ya lo probaremos en el curso. Esto va dentro. ¿Vale? Y es una ayuda externa que tenemos que es fantástico. ¿Vale? Ahora Terry va a enseñar un ejemplo de esto, de lo que os he explicado ahora. Yeah, I just explained them how we work with the tempo trainer, how we mix green zone, number of strokes, and tempo.
So this is a little exercise that I did. It's a very difficult exercise at the level I did it, but I practiced it a lot. I swam. This is a 25-meter pool in New Paltz, and I swam at a 1.1 second tempo. There was a beat every 1.1 seconds, and I counted my strokes. So 1.1 seconds per stroke, and I took 17 strokes, and my time was 22.4 seconds. So that's what it looks like. And I was going to increase tempo by 4 100ths each successive 25 until I could no longer maintain the 17-stroke count. So now it's 1.06. Whoops! Oh no, this is all the way at 0.94. We skipped some. Still at 17 strokes, but now 19.3 seconds. I don't know what happened to the others. But I went 1.06, 1.02, 0.98, 0.94, and in any case, I got all the way to 0.9 seconds of an increase in tempo of 0.2 of a second. I think that's the end of it or something. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Not now.
No. So the idea is how can we train our brain to follow the tempo without increasing the number of strokes. That's the goal.
May I ask something? You described exactly the same problem I'm facing. As soon as I increase the frequency of my strokes, my strokes become shorter.
Right.
So overall, in a swimming pool, 25 or 50 meters, when I try to increase my frequency, I do more strokes.
By how much are you increasing the frequency? Are you doing it by 1/100th of a second?
Yeah, from I start 120, 118, 116. And I saw that you were able to.
So how many changes? How many changes? So you're talking about a change of 2 100ths,
Yeah.
120, 118, 116. For how many times can you change by 2 100ths and keep the same stroke count? Can you stay at the same stroke count at 118?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
How about 116?
I start to struggle.
you start to struggle. Okay, so you found the struggle point. That's where you need to work. That's, you know, 117, 116. Once you find that point where you start to struggle, you have to work quite a bit there until you no longer feel like you're struggling. That's always the point. You'll find the point where you start to struggle, and your body needs time to adapt. Your brain needs time to adapt. Your whole nervous system needs time to adapt. The whole point of this is finding the point where you start to struggle with something, with anything. It could be your ability to maintain a male slot entry for a number of laps or at a certain tempo. But in this case, it's a stroke count. A goal that I think most people should aim for is the ability to hold one stroke count for about 7 100ths to 8 100ths of increased tempo. From the easiest tempo at which they can do it, or the slowest tempo at which they can do it, to the fastest tempo. So set a goal of 7 100ths or 8 100ths.
And going faster every 100 or?
Every 25, 100th of a second faster. Do a series of 25s, 100ths of a second faster. And then what I would do is there are so many sets you can do with a tempo trainer. I mean, that's only one of them. There are countless sets that you can do with a tempo trainer. I go the other way a lot. Is I will say start with 110 tempo, swim 100 meters, time myself for 100 meters at 110 tempo. Then I'll slow it to 112. See if I can do the same times. Slow it again to 114. So I'll slow the tempo bit by bit and see if I can do the same time. What do I have to do as I'm slowing tempo to repeat the same time? What must I change in my stroke? Longer. I have to take longer strokes.
How can you get longer stroke? How can you get longer stroke? More pressure?
Extend more, press a little bit more.
Yeah. The way we train using the tempo, it's very nice. It's very interesting. You don't get bored in the water, so it's very lap you swim is very challenging. It's very interesting. Yeah, it's really different than the traditional way. Yeah.
I love it also because I'm able to concentrate better when I have that beat. My concentration is much stronger and deeper.
Yeah.
Undistracted.
Yeah, how to get a longer stroke in a short tempo? So, I don't understand this. So, in short tempo, you have.
Means how far you're traveling through space.
I know.
Tempo is just how frequently you're taking.
Tempo pump, you have to, how to maintain, you make faster, you push faster.
Yeah, but you can take strokes more frequently without shortening the distance that you travel on each stroke. That will make you go faster, right? So if I travel from here to halfway down that table, and if I increase my tempo, I want to also make sure that I don't shorten the distance that I travel, right? If I can maintain the same distance while taking strokes at a more faster pace, then you're going to swim faster.
There will come a time as you increase tempo. There will come a time when your stroke will shorten. So you're trying to keep it long for as long as you can. You're trying to hold one stroke count for as long as you can. At a certain point, the stroke count will increase, but maybe that's the right stroke count for the new tempo.
Yeah. So can I take this answer? I mean, I'm experiencing this, I'm trying to experience this every time I train. It's very challenging.
You told them about the first time that you and I worked together.
We went together in the UK in all Windsor. I just became a TA swimmer, so I was swimming very smooth, very beautiful, but very slow. And we were doing like this kind of training. So the name of the course was fast forward training. I was there and I told him, okay, I'm an overglider swimmer. I swim very smooth, but I'm not able to swim fast. So don't worry, we'll do it in 2 days. We were working with tempo training. I was swimming at 1.30. And then after some workouts and a couple of days later, he told me, now you put the tempo 0.95. 0.95 was, I'm gonna die.
We didn't suddenly jump it to
No, we were doing
small steps.
small steps. We probably spent 1 hour in the pool going very, very little by little, increasing the tempo. So then he told me, okay, now you're gonna put it in the tempo that we want, 0.95, and then you're gonna change the beat. It's gonna be your kick, not your entry. And then I swim 25. And to be honest, in my brain, it was like a couch. So I had to be concentrated on the head entry, hip rotation, so a very short period of time. But outside, when I saw the video, I was like swimming very relaxed. I couldn't believe it. So maybe under 0.95 is now for Michael Phelps. You know, I mean, we have the example of Katie Ledecky. She's able to maintain the stroke length, even when she increases the tempo. It's amazing. But I mean, she's Katie Ledecky.
The other part of
Es
this,
muy difícil. Es la gran diferencia entre hacer un nado normal y un grandísimo nado. Yo hay un momento que yo no puedo.
Wow, però això és
Però
que
ells,
si apunta el temps entrenant, arribaràs.
Smart speed, bien smart speed, però que inteligente, poc a poc. Però sempre amb un objectiu.
Si vaig fer el curs i baixava de 10 en 10, i dic que baixava de 1 en 1.
A veure, sí, en els cursos, el que fem a l'últim dia, he has me why in the workshops, that at the very end of the workshop we just make a little introduction of tempo training. We do like the asymmetric what do you call it?
Tempo pyramid.
Yeah, but we go very fast.
Yeah.
We change every 10, and we go. So it's just to them for them to know how we work. But it's not a really fast forward course. Os enseñamos esto para que tengáis nociones de cuál es el siguiente paso. ¿Vale? Pero los saltos cada 10 son saltos abismales. ¿Vale? Sí, porque empezamos en 1.30 y llegamos a 1.60 o 1.80.
Sí, 1.20 no tiene 1.60, bajamos
Y luego bajamos de 5 en 5. ¿Vale? Pero son saltos muy grandes. Pero os ponemos situaciones muy de riesgo para que veáis que los tienes que mantener. ¿Vale?
Entonces, bajar más lento los tirarme.
can I just ask something?
Yeah.
I just want to give you one specific example because we're kind of speaking theoretically, and it may be difficult when speaking theoretically to really understand how do you actually do that. So how do you maintain the distance, but do it in a shorter amount of time? Because obviously you have to create more power, right? In order to cover the same distance, but do it in a shorter amount of time. But you don't want to just go to spending more energy. So I'm just going to give you one specific example because you want to have technique tools, that you know how to use technique tools. And essentially what technique tools do is they allow you to harness energy that's naturally available to you, just physics, without necessarily just jumping to you spending more of your energy. So one example of that would be timing of when you make the switch in relation to where the hand is, right? So an example of where you would spend more or less energy as your hand's coming forward. If you start to kick and rotate just a little bit too soon, like if the water level is here, then a lot of the energy is wasted on the entry instead of on the forward motion. Whereas if you make a small technique tweak, this is just one example that I'm giving you. If you make a small technique tweak where you actually get your hand into the water first, slicing down, and then you kick just after that, then more of your energy will be going to forward motion instead of dissipated on the entry. So total immersion is full of these kinds of details of the question, well, how do I do that? I mean, throughout every drill, there's there's a lot of focus points. And it's knowing how to choose the appropriate focus point at the appropriate time that will give you that little bit extra. And then once you've completely optimize that, then you start going to apply more power from your energy, like with more force. But you want that to be the very last thing that you go to. Does that make sense?
Okay, we're done. Any more question, yeah?
We were discussing the number of strokes in the pool, and we're a group of people that mostly swim in the sea. Do we have hope to improve our technique without hitting the pool?
Yeah, you use your focal points. I swim a lot in open water in the warmer months. Yeah, and I love open water in my technique work because it allows me to take one focal point and just keep thinking about that focal point without the interruption of a wall. I instead of 15 or 16 or 18 strokes, and then I get interrupted by a wall, I can continue on. I use my tempo trainer in open water quite a bit, and so if there's a feeling that feels good, I can really ingrain and imprint that feeling in open water.
I have a question. You are using this tempo trainer as a gadget. I am asking, are there other gadgets that can be useful for a really poor swimmer? Doing the total immersion?
Other gadgets?
Yes.
Are you considering a poor swimmer?
Yes.
Shakim? Come on.
Slim fins.
Fins. You mean paddles, fins?
Paddles or some wedding suit or neoprene until the knees. Anything.
Yeah, I like the tempo trainer as a learning tool, but other than that, I'm really in favor of swimming with the equipment I was born with.
And the suit and goggles.
What? No, you didn't know that I came into the world with a suit, goggles, and a cap?
No! That's the biggest surprise.
And for me, I mean, my advice, forget about big paddles. Dangerous.
Yes.
Amazing. So, I mean, when I see the kids when they are 12, 14 years old, all of them injure shoulders, training with such big paddles. And you go to doctors and they say, what are you doing with paddles? Forget about paddles. And they use them and use them. Well, so just one little thing, you were asking about the open water. We have the great pleasure, it's been a surprise for me, because Sunye is here. He just joined you don't know him, I mean, it's probably one of the best open water swimmers in Spain.
No.
He's done the British channel, he's on the Gibraltar channel. Yeah, and well, it's a pleasure. Yeah, he's very, very interested in total immersion. He took some courses with Joseba.
Just one afternoon.
One afternoon?
Yeah. One of my sponsors invited me, I think 4 years ago, and I was very surprised because I changed my way of swimming in one afternoon. And I was I've been swimming since I was a child, since 7 years old. And I don't know, after that I was very
curious
about the methodology of the immersion, and that's the reason why I'm here.
And you're also running a very nice project for open water lovers.
Exactly.
Yeah, have you heard about the Vías Bravas? Yeah, he's the guy who is leading the project. Yeah, so we've done some open water swimming camps with Marion, and the very last day we finished the workshop doing a Via Brava with his team. It's very nice, it's a very nice experience. So, I mean, for people training in the pool and after 3 or 4 days going into the open water, in such amazing place in Costa Brava, living by the people from Via Brava, it's a very good combination. Yeah.
And you're so fortunate to be learning total immersion here in Barcelona with the Mediterranean Sea at your doorstep. Yeah.
Okay. You're welcome. So if you're interested, I mean, as total immersion, there's a webpage where you can find books, you can find DVDs, etc. You have some examples here. You want to take one. I mean, well, you let us know.
You can have it signed, signed by Terry. These are the English versions, and we just learned that at FNAC there's the Spanish.
FNAC they have a Spanish version.
Can you tell them about the Spanish?
Yeah. Puedes explicarles que hay la versión española en FNAC, sí.
O porque debería tener casa de libro.
Sí. And thank you very much for taking your